Hey, it's been a while, it's been a hectic couple of months, but here we are with ReZero Starting Life in Another World Volume 7 with the regal Willhelm on the cover as well as his late wife Hajimeru Van Astrea in the background. This is one of my favorite covers for what is one of my favorite volumes in the entire series. After such a long ride on the pain train, we finally get to a nice stop. And what's good is, Arc 3 is still not over yet, there's still more good stuff to come. So let's get right into this awesome volume with our main character, Subaru. After going through so much in the previous volume, Subaru really shines in this one, and the volume opens up with the continuation of the tough negotiation between Subaru, Krusz, and Anastasia. The teachings of Anastasia really come into play in this volume, which is an awesome callback. Despite Subaru not enjoying the roast, it was useful. Subaru manages to be successful in the negotiations in this loop. This happens due to three main reasons. The first is obvious. He has access to unknowable information. This gives even more meaning to his previous stats. As we know, knowledge is power, especially in a negotiation. Also, learning from his previous mistakes, this time he manages this unknowable information much better, using a white lie about the white whale regarding his cell phone to make his claims seem more believable, or should I say less unbelievable. He also manipulates Rem into the conversation to add credibility to his claims. Our little main character is getting more Machiavellian by the day. In addition, this time he simply hides the fact that the witch cult are attacking, because it was just simply too hard to explain without seeming very suspicious. I think that he made smart choices regarding what information to reveal and what to omit, but still it's very impressive that he had the balls to hide his true main goal from these negotiations. It's just great to see our main character growing. Sneaky, sneaky Subaru. This is something that works maybe even on a meta level. When watching the anime and when reading Volume 7, the awesomeness of the white whale subjugation is so immersive that maybe the reader can even forget this isn't even the main goal. Technically, the main goal is to save Emilia and the villagers, so this is just a side quest. The second point that made Subaru successful this time was that he is now negotiating with the characters. As I said previously, it wasn't so much that Subaru was bad at negotiating, it was even worse than that. Subaru did not even see the other camp members as people to be negotiated with. Now he realizes the position each camp is in, and this gives more realism to the story as each political camp has its own agenda. In other lesser stories, I would say, the camps would simply help Subaru because he's the main character and they believe him blindly just because it's convenient to the plot. As a side note, to me it's very funny that Subaru left out Priscilla from these negotiations. One can argue that with the military might of Krusz and Anastasia she just wasn't needed, but I like to believe that Subaru thought she was way too unpredictable and moody to be in these dire negotiations, and quite honestly, I don't blame him, I would have done the same thing. The third factor that made Subaru successful this time was pure luck. You know, he also has some main character luck, it's not as pronounced as some other series, but you can argue that after all that he went through, he deserves a bit of luck. If everything went wrong all the time, it would also be pretty boring. Even though we as the reader are rooting for Subaru, it's easy to see that he gets away with a lot of stuff. Krusz has her blessing of the wind and Anastasia is extremely shrewd in negotiations, and yet they still go along with this crazy plan. They know Subaru is lying or at least bending the truth, and yet they still go along with this. You can argue that if they were slightly more risk averse, this whole plan would have failed. Then Subaru guesses correctly that Krusz is hunting the white whale. Remember, at this point in the story he did not know Wilhelm's past and he didn't really have any certainties. It was a wild guess. He could not know for sure with the information he had at the time. She could be amassing military might to hunt another of the great demon beasts. Heck, she has history with one of them. She could also be amassing military might for another purpose entirely, but yet he throws in a wild guess and he guesses correctly. In these negotiations we can see that Subaru is a changed man, but I would argue that it's not necessarily that he's much braver or more capable than before, it's just that now he has a clear head, the right intentions, and the willingness to work around his own weaknesses, instead of just raging against the world and himself. He's also relying on Rem for support. Remember, without her none of this would have been possible. Subaru would have just ran away on Volume 6. And the scenes where she's helping him build up courage during the negotiation are also very funny and cute, and I think it's hilarious that he does not hide this fact from the other characters whatsoever, despite the situation being so tense, and the other characters even approve of it to some degree, which is just funny. Those small interactions also lead to some other quirky details about the characters, such as the weird rituals they do. For example, Crush writes enemy in her palm and then eats it to steal her resolve. I find these details funny and also endearing because it humanizes these larger-than-life characters. Maybe it's the nature of the written medium, but for me the best part of ReZero is the dialogue and the interactions between the characters, so these tense negotiations hit all the right notes for me. Great opening chapter. After the deals are made, we go into the fight with the white whale, and honestly the white whale is terrifying. The sheer scale of this battle puts everything else before it to shame. The white whale takes almost an entire volume to kill, and this is with the biggest assembly of all-stars we've had up until now. Compared to the white whale, the demon beasts of volume 3 look like a joke. Speaking of scale, there's one nitpick I have with this volume, and it's the white whale's size in the illustrations. Just look at this. Sure, it's very scary, but isn't the white whale supposed to be even bigger than this? It's supposed to be around 165 feet, that's around 50 meters for us Europeans, so this looks a bit small. It looks a bit better here, but still the size of the white whale in relation to the other characters greatly confuses me. The size doesn't even look coherent with the previous volume. But hey, this is more of a nitpick. I don't really take this too seriously. I know these images are more promotional than illustrative, and the main characters, the ones that actually sell the books, have to look good on the image. They can't look too small, so it's more of a nitpick. Just wanted to point it out. Anyway, if the video game and fantasy elements weren't obvious enough, the white whale is literally a raid boss. It has multiple abilities, it can levitate, enhanced movement, mist that melts people away from memory, debuff mist that drives people crazy. It has multiple phases. When its HP is low enough, it just divides itself into mini bosses. This is literally a video game boss. Once again, even ignoring the size, just in terms of abilities and powers, comparing the white whale to the demon beasts in volume 3 just makes him look like Subaru barely beat the tutorial. There's a bit of a sense of overconfidence once Subaru manages to get the help of both Anastasia and Krush. Even I as the reader got overconfident. With these allies, how can he lose this battle? That overconfidence quickly fades away during the battle. I would argue that if the forces were any weaker, they would have lost to the white whale. I love this battle. Besides being action-packed and intense, it's also an emotional roller coaster. If I had to highlight my favorite things and my least favorite things, it would be the following. The only thing I really didn't like during this battle was the cliffhanger where they lose both Willhelm and Ricardo to the white whale. I think it's a bit cheap. They could have either done the plot point with just one of them. I think it would have been perfectly fine if it was just Willhelm going into the belly of the white whale for a little bit, or if one of them actually died. It would have upped the stakes and made the battle seem more intense. I know this is a problem of the light novel medium. The author wants to put the characters in a desperate situation, but he doesn't have many named characters he can work with that the reader actually cares about. But doing both of them, Willhelm and Ricardo, and both of them being effectively fine afterwards seems a bit cheap. For things I enjoyed, number 1, Willhelm's backstory. It greatly enhances this battle. It ups the stakes and makes the reader more emotionally involved. As I said previously, for Subaru, this is not the main goal. This is technically just a side quest. It doesn't really matter what happens to the white whale as long as Emilia and the villagers can be saved. For Willhelm, this is very, very personal. Besides access to Roswell's mansion, Subaru doesn't really have any strong motive to go after the white whale. Sure, there's perhaps revenge for the previous loops or doing a good deed for humanity in general, but that's a bit shallow. For Willhelm, it's very personal. It's the monster that took away his wife. Up until this point, we don't know much about Willhelm. All we know is that he's this badass old man and that his nickname is the Sword Devil. Seeing his backstory is very cool. We see him grow from this edgy loner, meh, I hate flowers, meh, all I have is my sword, and see him grow in love with Teresia and grow as a result is very cool. Small note, during the backstory there's this moment where the narrator swerves us where he's like, and then Willhelm was humble on his first battle. Nah, just kidding, he was strong from the beginning, he just beat everybody. I think the author's sense of humor is just very funny to me. Sometimes he just makes me laugh. So it's because of Willhelm's backstory and the tragedy with his wife that we get emotionally invested in this battle, and that's why victory feels so sweet. I even enjoyed the line where Willhelm says, "I love you" to Teresia. It may be a bit cheesy, but it gives us closure to the regrets of this character. The second thing I enjoyed the most about this battle and this volume was the fact that Subaru took a leadership role during this fight. It was so awesome. After being such a bitter, whiny loser in the previous volumes, it's so good to see him grow. It makes us really proud as a reader. Him being one of the more calm individuals in this entire expedition is very impressive, considering he's probably one of the weakest beings in the entire group. I mean, I would even put the land dragons above him in terms of a power ranking. There's the beginning of the battle where Subaru and Ram launch the preemptive strike when everyone else is intimidated, even Krush. And for Subaru, it's very brave, even though he has the fear factor diminished, obviously, because it's not his first encounter with the White Whale, but it's still very impressive. And for Ram, it's very brave as well, even though for her it's not so much as courage, it's more her unwavering trust for Subaru. The end of the fight is where he really shines though. First, he shows that he will not give up no matter what. He has suffered through too much to just give up now. Just look at our boy, looking so good, the most heroic he has looked in the entire series. Then he motivates Ram so that they can save Willhelm from the belly of the beast, literally. "Let's do it, Ram, it's our big scene. Giving up ain't our style, not me, not you, not one of us." Then he is the one who notices that the whale has split its body and comes up with this crazy plan to use himself as bait to lure the whale down so that they can squash it with the flugel tree. Sure, from a rational standpoint, his only real power is to be used as bait for demon beasts, but let's think about this plan for a second. He's going to be launched into the air, free fall from a crazy height, trust that the whale will come after him, get grabbed by Ram, and then run away with Ram and Patarash from both the whale and the tree that's coming down. This plan is just insane. Everything could have gone wrong. Very wrong for Subaru. Subaru has returned by death, but let's not forget that he still dies. It's still very painful and traumatic, both physically and emotionally, and this mad lad still goes ahead with his crazy plan, and it works. Now, small nitpick, I don't know why Subaru's return by death worked. Maybe I just misunderstood what the power does. I thought that someone was supposed to listen to it and the jealous witch would get jealous, pardon the redundancy, and then she would activate the gripping of the heart of Subaru. Here, no one is around to listen, so maybe it works on non-sentient beings such as demon beasts, or maybe Subaru just needs to utter the words and the power works by itself without needing anyone to listen. That's just a small detail that I noticed. I don't know if this is a plot hole or maybe I just misunderstood how the power worked, but just something to think about. Then, after the whale is trapped by the tree, we get this final awesome confrontation between the white whale and Willhelm, and it's just, this battle is just peak fiction. It's just so good from a narrative standpoint. Every character gets a chance to shine, and obviously the main highlights are Willhelm and Subaru. Even after having read a lot of the following books, to me, the White Whale subjugation is still one of my favorite moments of the series. Just love, love, love this volume. Finally, the volume ends with Subaru confronting Julius and being mature about it and apologizing to him, and he apologizes back, and it's all good. Then we get some funny shenanigans with Subaru saying he still doesn't like Julius. Hey, fair enough, man. And Julius saying to use the codename Julie because a knight cannot be seen with mercenaries doing this type of work. Just funny stuff. A nice cool down after all the action we've just had. Reading this volume makes me feel like a proud parent, and this volume is just great, from the early tense negotiations to the epic battle to the final funny moments. This volume is just awesome from start to finish. And I didn't think this day would come, but if I had to give an MVP for Volume 7, it has to be Subaru. Congratulations, Subaru, from useless main character to getting your first and maybe final, who knows, MVP. Congratulations. This was my review of Volume 7. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you guys on Volume 8. Bye bye.